Call this meeting to order. This is a Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. It's a few minutes after 5:30 p.m. Thank you, John. You're always looking out for me. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Matt?
Here.
Ms. Sanford?
Here.
Mr. Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Delight is absent.
Yeah, I talked to Randy. He's not going to be able to make it tonight. He had another event previously scheduled. So, tonight we're going to move agenda item up, let's see, we got some new business to talk about, and we've been talking a lot about impact fees, right? So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about traffic impact fees, and we've invited Mr. Eddie Idell here to come tonight and kind of talk a little bit about traffic impact fees.
Good afternoon. Eddie Idell with Alvin Fairbairn Associates. Traffic impact fees. Oh, I thought
no,
I'd come to talk about traffic.
This is something new. No.
Okay.
It's my fault.
We've got impact fees on the agenda, and we're not really actually taking any action tonight.
I brought
just
Mr.
discussion,
Idell in
impact
just for
fees in general.
Presentation.
And so Eddie's here to talk about impact fees in general.
So when you talk about traffic impact fees and how you calculate them, how you assess them, in my opinion, you can really break all of that into as many as 3 or 4 different categories. There's a lot of municipalities in our area that do charge, I say a lot, there's several municipalities in the area that charge impact fees for traffic. East Baton Rouge, Ascension, St. Tammany, several others. So there is a lot of data out there on different methodologies that municipalities use to calculate an impact fee, and there's a lot of data out there on different methods that they also use to assess impact fees. So it's something that's pretty common, unlike the school impact fee that I know you guys are going to talk about too.
Real quick,
so
what's the difference between calculate an impact fee and assess an impact fee?
So first you have to come up with a matrix on how you're going to calculate, say for a typical 2,500 square foot home, what is the impact fee going to be? Let's say you arrive at that it should be $1,000. Well, you can't just pull that number out of the air. You have to go through a process, and you have to put enough time and effort into it to be able to justify that $1,000 impact fee for that typical 2,500 square foot single family residence. So when I say the methodology used to calculate it, that's what I'm talking about. And then as far as assessing the impact fees, there are municipalities that have a really simple methodology. It's just a flat fee for every residence, kind of irregardless of the size of the residence. Same thing with businesses. Some have many categories and many different rate schedules per square foot, and some just say, if you're going to open a car dealership, this is the impact fee that you're going to pay. So just those two pieces of the puzzle is what I would say would be the methodologies you would use to actually calculate it, and then coming up with a mechanism to assess those fees. So I think that that's where you should start, would be to look and see what our neighbors are doing and other municipalities across the country, and pick the couple of different methodologies that we think would fit Livingston Parish, and then talk about them, and you guys decide, hey, this is what we think is best for Livingston Parish when it comes to the way in which we calculate it, and then also coming to an agreement on how you assess it per residence and per business. Once you get that part done, the biggest piece of the puzzle is still going to be left to be done, and that would be one way you could do it is come up with a 10-year transportation improvement plan that was solely focusing on improving capacity in our transportation system, widening roundabouts, signalizing intersections.
Interchanges, interstate.
Possibly work on the interchanges.
Whatever, right.
So now we're talking about state and federal highways also, potentially. So that's where the more time and money you spend on that portion of it, which is going to obviously be the biggest portion of it, that would require the most resources as far as getting other consultants involved, you know, traffic experts.
And you call that a 10-year, what'd you call it? A traffic plan?
Say a 10-year transportation improvement plan.
Okay.
Really focused on increasing the number of trips that you could move through our parish and state highways in Livingston Parish to make people's commutes more tolerable. You know, if somebody has to sit through one light cycle at a signal, well, that's probably a pretty good, what we call level of service. It may be a B or an A. If you have to sit through 4, well, now you're getting close to an F, you know, a really bad level of service. And that's something that really deserves a lot more than the 30 minutes that we're going to be sitting here talking about traffic.
Right.
But that is going to be the biggest piece, and I think that would be the third piece of the puzzle. The first thing to do, which is, in my opinion, it is a lot simpler. You come up with a good methodology that we think works for Livingston Parish. You come up with what we believe would be a fair way to assess those fees. And then the third part being, we determine what we think we can afford to spend to come up with a 10-year plan. And that, obviously, the more money you spend, the less educated guesses you're making. The more money you spend, the more data you have, and the more certainty you have with your plan and with the cost to implement that plan. So that's the decision you have to make. Are you going to do something crazy simple for $10,000, or are you going to spend $1 million to really do a fantastic 10-year plan to improve the capacity of our roads?
And if you do $1 million, then you really have to make sure that that formula pays for itself.
That's right, because you know, when you look at what we spend on our roads every year, I don't know, maybe $1 million, not crazy, but it's a lot of money for Livingston Parish. You know, it's not a lot of money for Baton Rouge, but it's certainly a lot of money for us. And that's what deserves a lot more discussion and more meetings, so that we can figure out what our level of tolerance is. Can we afford to spend $50,000 on coming up with a 10-year plan, or $250,000?
Right.
What do we want to do? What can the parish afford, and what makes sense? You need to spend enough money and time to do it so that you can defend what you're charging people. But you know, there's a vast distance between probably what's minimal and enough and what you could do. And that's I think where we're going to spend most of our time.
So let's just say we spend $100,000 to put together a 10-year, or $200,000 or whatever, and just put together a 10-year transportation plan. With that, could you project the 10-year growth of new developments in this parish, and then take that figure and divide it?
You're going to have to do that, because you know, we know we have problems in the parish already, and we're going to have to do, you know, we're going to have to look and see what resources are out there for traffic counts and analysis that DOTD and NPO has already done, and use all of that we can get, and determine, because there's problems that we need to fix already, and then there's problems that are going to be made worse, and new problems that are going to be created by additional growth in the parish. And that's where, you know, there's a lot of thought that needs to be put into what portion should the parish be responsible for, or what portion can we afford, and then what portion do we think we can secure in federal and state funds, and then what portion should be the burden that's placed on development. You know, that's where just a lot of, you know, we need a lot of input and discussion on that, so that we can come up with something that we feel we can justify.
I had, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
No, you're doing a great job. Keep going.
My thought here had coming. If we implement the plan and then we charge the fees, you know, I guess with that, if a development comes in a certain district, then it would, the money, could you assign it to that district? And answer, hold on to that question, because I got one more. It's a thought. You know, I know when I was with the city of Denham Springs, and even now with the parish, for major capacity roads, which is what we need for, and blacktop the road doesn't improve help traffic relief. Right. Capacity helps traffic relief.
Turning lanes, adding lanes,
right,
roundabout signals.
You know, and we've been so dependent upon the federal government to do an interstate. We don't have, you know, and then we're so dependent on the state to do something, and our hands are tied all the time because we don't have the resources, the funds to do that. And I'm thinking if we could do a traffic fee and then not let that money be used in general fund, not let it be used for salaries, but let it be paid for either concrete and steel to get people in and out of traffic, or matching funds to take a $2 million matching to turn it into $20 million from the federal. So that's the two questions.
Right. So it's kind of accepted that we would have to put some thought in this process into, don't necessarily think council districts, but breaking the parish up into traffic districts, okay? Because you should spend the money that you collect by the developments in a certain area on those roads and those improvements. You wouldn't want to put it all, and if you wouldn't want to put it all into one pot and just spend it on this project, on this one project in this corner of the parish. You would, in my opinion, have to break the parish up into some districts specifically geared toward traffic improvements and make sure you separate those funds. I think that would be the most appropriate thing to do. And what was the other thing you said?
Yeah, that's why I told you both before, so I wouldn't forget. That's why I told you both of them, I guess. And that was the question, the district, and then the other one was using the funds for not being just reliant upon.
Right.
For matching, it was for matching.
Yeah,
it was for matching fees on, you know, infrastructure.
There's been a kind of an unwritten rule that we wanted to spend our parish dollars on parish roads. Okay, except for a few instances, we typically don't spend parish funds, except sometimes for matching funds for Cook Road, things of that nature, where we spend parish funds on something that, well, that is actually going to be a parish road. So it's rare that we spend parish funds on state federal highways. If we're really going to go down this path, understand that the majority of the improvements that we'll have to make to increase capacity for the residents of the parish are going to be on state highways.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's going to be a process where we develop that partnership with DOTD, like Ascension and EBR has done, where we partner with them to spend parish dollars on state highways. So that's something that you guys will have to come to terms with, because it's just kind of been something, well, that's their problem, they need to spend their dollars on it. Well, we're going to have to change our mindset, because in order to make real improvements for our people, that's where you're going to have to spend the dollars.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I had one more thought, and I'll let you go. You had mentioned now the dividing it up into traffic districts, if you might say, and all that would be done in that study, in that.
Yeah, we would make recommendations to you. Okay. At the time that we start developing some different methodologies that you would want to consider and mechanisms to implement the fees. you could certainly do that at that time. Look at the lay of the parish and do a good job of breaking that up into districts.
And if we did authorize you to start this 10-year plan, my question is, could you say do it in phases where you say did $50,000 worth, okay, and but you said, look, if you want to go the next level, it's going to cost this. Would you have to throw away the first part?
I would certainly, what my recommendation would be is, if you guys were going to authorize us, I would concentrate on the first two tasks, which would be just the research on what our neighbors are doing, what they're doing across the country, and come up with a couple of different methodologies that we feel would be, that would fit Livingston Parish, and come up with some recommendations for how to assess those fees to the developers, residential and commercial, and save the biggest part for after we had completed those two tasks, which would also include a recommendation on some traffic districts for Livingston Parish.
Now,
because once we get to the end of that, putting those pieces of the puzzle together, I think we would probably develop a good idea as to what it would take to do a good enough job at developing a plan with some capacity improvements and cost estimates so that we had justification to come up with that number as to what you would charge.
And my last question, and I'll be quiet. So to do the methodology and the fee and what you call it, the assess,
and come up with a mechanism to assess it.
To do that, and I'm not holding you to this, what do you think a cost like that would be just to authorize that to be done?
I would say it'd probably be in the $25,000 to $50,000 range.
Okay, and that'd be a good start to get going, and from there we could decide how in detail we want to go.
Because during that process, you would determine if indeed you're going to move forward. And we would develop a good idea, I think, as to what that final piece of the puzzle would cost to do a good enough job to be able to justify what we were going to charge.
I don't have any more questions. I
got one real quick. So, who would you work with? Would you just work within your organization, or would you work like with the council to kind of answer something, or the planning commission?
You guys have to vote on this. So certainly work with the parish council. As far as the first part, what I would say what I would say we do is develop a scope and figure out what you want to spend, because the more consultants you get involved, the more money you're going to spend. Which I'm certainly open to bringing in other people. If you wanted a collaborative effort for those first two parts, certainly open to doing that. It's not necessary if you don't want to spend the money to do it. But if you do, you certainly could. For the third part, again, depending on how complex and how much money you want to spend, if we're talking about really getting into the weeds and doing traffic counts and capacity analysis of our roadways, we certainly would have to bring in other traffic consultants to do that, because now you're talking about a pretty significant project. But like I said, that third part depends on how, if all we're going to spend is, if we decide we could do a good enough job for $25,000, you're not going to really be bringing in any other consultants. If we decide we want to do something better and spend $250,000, then you certainly would have other professionals involved, without a doubt.
I have a question. So you would be working with the planning professional that we're bringing in, because what you're saying sounds very planning to me.
So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of definitions of what planning is, but you certainly could bring Villavasso and Associates in and work with them.
You work with them.
We would talk about the scope of what you guys wanted to accomplish, and there certainly may be some parts of that that were appropriate for those guys to do, for sure. Yeah.
On the first two sections, the first part, or
possibly. You know, as far as doing the research, and look, those guys have worked for a lot of municipalities, so even if they didn't do the work directly, they would have knowledge of what some other entities have done,
so
which
it's good
would be
resource.
valuable too. Absolutely. Yeah.
I just appreciate you taking time to come talk, Eddie. This is, I think, you know, traffic impact fees are it's a way of using the resources that this parish has to invest back in the parish, to build our infrastructure, to make people's lives better for getting around in traffic. And if we don't, otherwise we're just dependent upon the federal government and the state and good politicians to connive and try to get money for us. Where if we use our resources, I think it puts the ball in our court.
What I would say is just please resist the urge to just look at what our neighbors are charging and pick a number. Don't do that, because it'll be very difficult for you guys to defend that. You know, if we're going to do it, let's put together a good plan and do it with some sound basis for coming up with the fee.
I know that my understanding of the laws legislating, regulating impact fees are so tedious and intricate and detailed that it's, I look forward to learning more from you on that. I'm learning this process as well. I'm excited about it. So.
Yeah, the biggest recurring theme you see when you start doing the research is having, you know, sound engineering data and justification for coming up with the fee. And there's even, you know, there's even been some decisions made about limiting the amount of time you have to spend those fees. So it can, it gets off into the weeds pretty quick.
And didn't you say you already did some research where some traffic impact fees have been challenged in court?
They have, yeah.
Not that they've been overturned or not, but that sometimes people take it all the way to Supreme Court.
And that's why, you know, in the end, you can say you have to have good, sound reasoning for assessing the fees that you're going to assess. You need to spend them where they need to be spent, and you need to spend them timely. You can't leave them in the bank for 15 years. So.
Wow.
And if you do that, then you'll be doing what you should be doing for the public.
Well, I didn't want to take any action on this tonight, but I wanted the Ordinance Committee and those watching on YouTube tonight to hear the ideas that Mr. Idell's brought, and that's the reason I asked you to come tonight to speak. And
thank you guys for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I look forward to knowing more. Thank you, as always.
Well, I'm going to go bother the guys at the town of Livingston now.
Thank you, Eddie.
If y'all don't have any other questions.
Appreciate you very much, buddy. Thanks for coming. All right. I was just going to say a few words. Yeah, you can come up just a second. So let's get a little more specific and talk about school impact fees. So received a letter from the Livingston Parish public school system, basically where the school board is supporting a school impact fee. They've, within this letter, have justified the fee amount per housing unit of $6,600. They've also communicated that that would be year one. They want to do it in, let's see, they're recommending a 5% increase be added to the initial impact fee each year for the first 3 consecutive years, with the reevaluation of the consumer price index to take place in the 4th year of implementation of the impact fee. So the first year it'd be $6,600, I think. And look, we're going to talk more about this, you know, with multiple council members. But I'm thinking maybe we write the first ordinance and we just put the $6,600, and then I don't know how to write it, where the second year you collect, you know, $6,930. You know, maybe to me the second year you just come back and you just modify the ordinance. you know. That's something I think that we can work out later. That's not a real critical issue when it comes to writing the ordinance, you know. I think we could just modify it at a later date, you know, the figure. What I wanted to say is that writing this ordinance is taking a little longer than I originally thought it was going to take. You know, there's a lot of legalities we're looking at as far as, you know, transferring funds within the governmental entities, you know, like Livingston Parish Council, you know, collecting the fee and then transferring it to the school board. You know, there's some state statutes around that that we're doing some research on to see if we can even do that. I think what I've read so far is that if the Livingston Parish Council collects the fee, then the Livingston Parish Council is going to need to, you know, I guess you could say, you know, put it in an account, and we would be responsible for maybe, well, we would be responsible for spending the collected amount, you know, I guess with the school board's, you know, meeting the school board's wishes on a school or school buses and things of that nature. So after doing that research, my thought is that this is going to work smoother, and it's going to be a better process if the ordinance is written such that we require the school impact fee, but the actual payment is, you know, the school board actually collect the payment, and then once they collect the payment, then they would communicate back to the Livingston Parish Planning Department, Permit Department, that the fee was collected, and then they would be allowed to move forward with, you know, building their structure, or, you know, moving forward with their development, you know. I want to also say that we're doing some research, checking out throughout the state, and we haven't been able to find any other parish within the state that collects a school board or a school impact fee. So we're not able to I guess you could say copycat, which is, say that again? Mirror, you know? Mirror that, you know? So, so we're having to, I guess you could say, draft this ordinance from scratch ourselves, you know? So it's taking a little bit longer. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and on that same vein, you just heard Mr. Idell say that you really need an engineered study to prove why you're charging that amount. I mean, has the school board done that, I guess, is my question. And I mean, have they taken future growth, and how do they know what our growth is in the parish as far as new subdivisions and you know, and maybe they've done that. And then, like he said, if it's not back engineered for a good reason, then it could be overturned in court. So, isn't that what he just said? And
that was my understanding, John. But we can talk more about it. To me, a lot of the things he communicated was more about traffic impact fees, and collecting traffic impact fees and maybe drainage impact fees. It's to my understanding that the school board did. Let's see. I'm not going to sit here and say they've done a study, but they have compiled a lot of information, a lot of data, and they have justified the amount of money that they're requesting that the council, you know, charge for these impact fees, and it's $6,600 to start.
You know, did they use an engineer to do that, or do you know?
I don't know if it was an actual engineer hired to perform the work,
professional,
but they have worked, I guess you could say, you know, with professionals. Okay. They've collected the information needed to justify the numbers. If it's, I'll look at this as, okay, so the school board task force, some school board members reached out to the Livingston Parish Council and requested that the Livingston Parish Council help them, collect and charge this impact fee because it's necessary. And the reason it's necessary is, to the best of my understanding, is that Livingston Parish doesn't have or collect in any way, shape, or form funding to build new schools. They have funding for maintenance, to maintain the schools. When it comes to salaries and materials and things of that nature, they have funding for their staffing salaries, and they have dedicated funding for all of that, but they don't actually have
to build new
specific
schools.
Funding to build new schools.
For growth,
For growth, and so this is a necessary impact fee. As Livingston Parish is experiencing rapid growth, they're going to need a way to offset, and to fund the new schools. So this is necessary. I'm willing to move forward with it because this was.
So let me ask you another question.
Supporting them in their decision. Yeah, go ahead.
So we just heard about Mr. Idell. We just asked him, if fees are collected in a specific area, would they be spent on that area? And then, and I know if we did it as a parish council and we collected traffic impact fees, then we're going to require that money be spent on capacity. I'm going to make sure it's in the ordinance. That it is not going to go to the general fund. It's not going to go to blacktop, and it's going to go to creating better traffic from being stuck in traffic. So my question is in the school impact fee that you're proposing, would that money be, that'll be in our ordinance to collect it, but in our ordinance, how are we going to tell them how to spend it, is my question.
That's a great question.
Because they might use it to salaries. And
we're not going to tell them how to spend it.
So what if they put it to salaries and then don't put new schools, is my question.
If I could just insert here, I have talked a little bit about impact fees.
School or traffic?
All of them.
Okay.
There's more than those two, and we just hired a planner to help us with this. I think that we need help with it. I really do. There are things that you can collect an impact fee for, and you cannot spend it. You can only spend it on certain things, and it's very specific, and you can get sued, and lawsuits have happened. And so I think that we need to have the planner involved here to help us with this, to bring in the school board, to bring in the engineer, to bring in, we have utility impact fees we probably need to collect as well. In my district, I don't know about your districts, I'm just going to give you feedback here. There's a huge impact right now to the water. Our water pressure's low. Our sewage is backing up into some of our homes. So there's an impact there, and all of that has to be collected as well. So I think that we need help. I have spoke to some of the school board members about this planning professional in regards to impact fees. And I want to get as much as we can for us, for our schools, for our parish, but also there's a healthy balance. Anyway, I wanted to say that. I think that the planner,
I agree. I think, a quick action is a lot more dangerous than a slow action in this case. So, I think we should wait. And do you have any idea when
Well, he's under contract.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, the contract is signed. He is. So maybe I'm going to try to get him on the agenda for the council meeting to introduce himself to us, and we're ready to roll.
Okay.
I think that it will be very beneficial, and I do know this. I'm open to correction, but if you collect an impact fee in a certain area, the money has to stay in that area. You can't collect an impact fee in South District 5 and it be used in North District, Shane's
It's
district.
got to be spent on the, yeah.
Stay to that school.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really want to get it right for us, and
I mean,
want the best.
I don't want to rush it. So if y'all want to talk to Stephen more about this and maybe get some recommendations, that's perfectly acceptable to me. I'm in no hurry.
I do understand the urgency of it.
Yeah.
You know, I do. I get it. I think maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like we ain't been going for years and years without one, so we could. I think as long as I think it's better to do it right, and then do it half cocked.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, is there anybody here that wanted to come and speak on, or maybe provide some feedback on impact fees or school impact fees specifically?
Do I need to fill out something? Okay, all right. Okay, I'm Kerry Koch, representing the Greater Baton Rouge Home Builders Association. We do appreciate the meetings and the conversations we've had with the council members that are here and not here about this. Just as a general position from the National Home Builders on down to the Baton Rouge, we are not supportive of impact fees. This is something that has come up and has kind of settled down. I know that we've talked about in the past. I think there's a reason there's no other school impact fee in Louisiana. I think these are short-term wins for long-term responsibilities that the parish takes on. It's like buying your kid saves up for a cell phone and you foot the bill, and some kids are still on their parents' bill. You're going to have to pay for these long-term maintenance issues that come up with this, like any other recurring fee, except these are going to grow exponentially. And I think we've met with, we love the planner is a great option. We would love to continue to have these conversations. We cover the 9 parish regions. We've had these similar conversations with the planners, developers, and different people that come to the table to really talk through this and maybe look at some alternate ways that we can address this. You know, there are certain taxing districts, special taxing districts that you can create that Councilman Sandiford, to your point about a low water pressure, that's happening today. That's not happening because of new development. I mean, new development maybe it increases that problem, but these are problems that are happening to your current constituents. So the fact of just imposing whatever the fee is on new development on a problem that's currently happening, is that really going to be the long-term solution for that? So looking at the planner and a long-term strategy is something we definitely support. We want to work with Livingston. We've got builders and suppliers and a bunch of people here that are totally involved in the home building industry. We want to continue to be here, stay here, and develop here in an appropriate way. And we want to work with the council and do as much as we can. We'll bring in professionals. We'll do whatever we can to meet with. And we love the idea about the planner coming on board, because we definitely have had those exact conversations with the Philip Basso and other groups that have been mentioned here in the other surrounding parishes. So I know Ascension has gone through this special taxing district. This is one way that they've just addressed this on newly built schools and things that are very important to the growth. And we want to, help a positive growth. And we want to see this we want to help the council and help the parish really grow appropriately and work with the builders in the area. So those are a couple comments. And I think going back to some of the fees, the $6,600 fee, I think that's in some investigation, I think that's the state share that goes per pupil to a student here in the parish. I think that's a 70% share, and the parish shares the other, what is that, $3,300 to make about a $10,000 per pupil. So it's actually the state share they're looking at for that $6,600. That's my research on understanding what that cost came from, because I was interested in the why behind that. And yeah, we're around. We have builders in the area that are part of the association, but we are available to meet and greet and do whatever we can to really help this conversation move forward and maybe look at some alternate ways. So I'm take any questions. But
I do think it's important. It's very important for us to work together, and I very much appreciate your feedback. Welcome it and need more of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying what you said.
Yeah.
And we need you. So thank you for saying that.
We'll continue to be here. Whatever y'all need, most have my number.
Do we have your email and phone number and stuff?
I can say it right here. It's just Cary, C-A-R-Y at Pelican State. I'll write it down. I got some cards too.
I'd like to ask him a question.
My number's 225-907.
Is it on the card?
It is on the card. You can share that?
We got it.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Go ahead, John.
Let me ask you a question. You said as a representative of the home, is it the national
Greater Baton Rouge Home
the
Builders.
Greater Baton Rouge Home Builder Association? You made the comment that nowhere in the state is there school impact fees.
That's correct.
So I'm assuming that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's kind of y'all's position that you would not support a school impact fee because I mean it hadn't been done. How can you support it? Hadn't
There's
been
a couple layers to that,
and that's fine. Which leads me to my question is, how does the Home Builders Association feel about traffic impacts fees? Because I know you build and
they're more prevalent,
and they're more prevalent. So are y'all opposed to those?
We are not supportive of them. We're opposed. Yeah, we don't love them. We don't love to have these impact fees.
Okay.
But we've been able to work with the Ascensions and the other groups that have done this and worked with us to make sure that we are still able to do things that make sense for that parish. And each parish is so different.
Right.
And it's uniquely fit. And again, we want to work, I mean, hand in glove here to make it, we know we're not all going to walk away smiling. And I think that's probably the best case scenario.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, but you see why parishes and why we would even consider, I mean, a traffic impact study, impact fee. I mean, because what you do is, I mean, and you build houses, and God bless you, and we all need good housing. But if you build houses, that's what brings cars. That's what brings traffic. I mean, you see why it's like we're targeting the building because that's what's causing the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not being
No, and you can cut both ways on. Okay, you're building homes, you're adding rooftops, you're adding more money to the economy, more popular, and I get it, more traffic, but you're also adding a new industry, new places to live, and I get it. We can go
right.
back
I'm
and
not.
forth on that.
I don't know. I just want to see where you're coming from on that because
I was going to add to that with a school impact fee, you can have some of the best schools in the state, which draws in the people, which raises the cost of the houses, and you can actually, have more development and things of that nature, so it kind of all grows together. No, you agree, disagree? I think it's a balance there, and I think you got to have, the right fees and, put the program together.
For the school impact, if there's not particularly a very good plan in place. Yeah. Going back to the legal aspect, the challenges are going to happen. It will happen. And I think, planning appropriately, it's very specific needs and what they have to be met. And again, you'll have other people that come here. You're going to charge someone who doesn't have, family of 5, a retired couple, charge the same fees for a school. You start to go down these rabbit holes that at the end of the day, if you're going to go after, something that's sustainable and long term, something you can bond out and really put down money and build out to the future, you're talking about a lot more than $6,600 per rooftop that comes into the parish per year. And I don't know how many rooftops are coming online. I know you're in growth, but I don't know if we worked even those numbers to see what even that looks like of the 60. What does that mean for the parish? Is that I don't know, but I think there's a lot. Again, do your due diligence. We'll work with you. Come back with some numbers and see what even some of those numbers look like. Would be helpful, I think, for everyone to understand.
And I don't have the data in front of me, but I think they were estimating about 2.2 children per household, and they were looking at the MFP program, and and how much it contributes for salaries and things of that nature, you know, and it being a certain figure.
Right.
And then this figure here would be for the school impact fee would be for constructing the new schools.
Yeah.
And it was based on, you know, square feet per student, you know, how many kids are in a classroom, how many classrooms you need. And they kind of, it's to my understanding, it was kind of justified like that. You know, it wasn't just a number thrown out there.
I just did my own independent trying to figure out I think
that's what they were looking at, how they justified the number.
I got it. And that's good information too, understanding how they came up with the fee itself.
Yeah.
It's good. But that's all I have. Any more questions? I'm here.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming, and thanks for, you know, being available and being willing to, you know, work with us in the future to help us get all this right, you know, so that we want
to be partners,
have the best quality of life for our people and all that wonderful stuff, you know.
That's what we want to do. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to talk? Come on up, man.
Now you're going to find out.
Brad Marcotte. I need the address and all that, like normal.
It's better if you do.
Okay,
yeah.
3244 Dunn Road. And I'm up here on the same thing, the impact fee, because I see it as they haven't done their homework on it.
They? Who's they?
School board.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But the first round they came at us with this, it was 6,600. This time it's 6,600. Okay. Last time they had done no research. This time they did it, and it's the same number. Okay. What happens to houses where there are no kids that go to the schools? Okay. I'm going to just put it in perspective. In the last 2 years, I have built 66 townhomes. Okay. You know how many kids there are in 66 townhomes, which are individually permitted. So that would be 6,600 times 66 townhomes. And there are 5 kids that go to Livingston Parish schools. Now I think when you do an impact fee like that, and it's going to go, because the way I understand it is where that impact fee is brought in is where it needs to be spent or has to be spent. Okay, you're just gonna, we already have it in this parish. Denham is massive. The schools, we're building schools that are 10 times bigger or elaborate than what our kids need to learn. Okay, and this is coming, I'm born and raised here. I want to stay here. But then you got areas, Holden, Springfield, smaller areas, there's no development, so they're not going to get any more school money or anything like that. Their schools are half falling down now. Okay, I think the way to do it, which they failed on it, is for a tax that is going to go around to everybody and let the public figure that out. Because my question to Mr. Shane a few weeks ago on this same topic is this impact fee going to be collected per lot, per permit? How are they going to collect that?
I can actually speak to that. Can I speak to that? So I did speak with a neighboring parish about this, and the impact fees stay in the western part of the parish, which is much more developed, much more activity than the eastern part of the parish. That might be a different percentage of the maximum or current fee that we would use. Okay, now you also have to break it down into multifamily is its own category, mobile homes are their own category, townhomes are their own category, shopping, banks, movie theaters, that's all their own categories, and different formulas are used to plug in all of those numbers. So it's extremely tedious and huge to unpack, but all of that does take account. And so, for example, in Ascension Parish, I'm going to try to say how I heard this, to quote it. The of Ascension Parish, say Gonzales, lots of population there. The impact fees for a multifamily would be at 90%. But in Sorrento, where the population is, I don't know what it is, let's just throw a random number out there, 5,000. I want to say he told me it was at 3% of what they would collect. So all of that comes in.
That kid costs more to teach or to.
Now that's not school.
See, that's where we're intermingling these two fees, and it's causing a problem, I think.
But they're asking for something that they don't have, and they haven't provided to y'all. I know you look, and I respect you for working with them and taking the time to hear out their effort. But it's just like they just got shut down on the 1 cent tax. They don't have the data, and they're not doing the studies that it takes in order to show the public, here, this is where we're getting these numbers. Okay? This is why we're asking for this. Okay? But now they're coming back at this 6,600 to throw it down on development. Okay? When we can't develop it like I develop and build. Okay? You throw 6,600 for schools, you throw 1,000 for roads, let's just say, which you know it'll be more than that. You throw 4,000 for sewer. As soon as them 3 bandwagons start, you know, like she said, water, they're gonna come on with an impact fee. Then electric, they're gonna come on with an impact fee. So let's say we get up to $10,000, $12,000 in an impact fee, an appraiser's not gonna give you more money on that, okay? It's gonna get to where, and I know they wanna run some of the building and development out of here, but we're not Baton Rouge, we're not Prairieville, we don't have ExxonMobil, we don't have Shell, okay? We have people, okay? That's what raises our tax dollars and gets the stuff like, a minute ago, I don't remember exactly what was quoted, but I think it was something about how money is brought here. And I'm not saying building is the only thing, but people is our only thing. If we don't get people, we don't get Jubin Crossing. So when you add 10 more thousand to a $25,000 sliver of land for a townhome, okay, that with products and everything as high as they are, they're not going to raise people. You're going to force people out. And that may be what you want. And that may be what the school board wants. But I think 6,600 is astronomical. Okay? Like, I fuss about the 4,000 for sewer. Okay? Some people would say, well, you just want to fuss about it. But I can somewhat comprehend that in my head, that every toilet has to flush. Okay? We're all equal. But you can't do 6,600, you can't do an impact fee on building or development for the school board that's going to be across the board when probably, I know they say 2.2 kids per household, but where is that study at? Because I know there's probably as many families without kids as with kids. So that's where I'm at with it. And I just think it needs to be looked at a whole lot harder than just trying to help them. It's not our fault as a developer or anything that we're building $30 million schools for Southside Junior High when Denham Junior High 20 years ago cost $5. Okay? I know, hey, the price of houses has went up 70% in 20 years. But does it really take the same, does it take $30 million to build a junior high when it took 20 years ago? They're not managing the money correctly.
Mr. Chairman, are you planning on taking any action tonight? Because, I mean, I liked Ms. Sandifer's thought, this maybe hold on until we can
no
talk.
Action. We can talk to Villavasso.
You know,
sounds good
unless
to me.
you had something you wanted to push tonight for action. I mean, Mr. Marcotte brings.
No, I mean, we don't even have the ordinance finalized to introduce, so there's no,
I mean,
there's no action tonight.
Good questions, I think, and.
Yeah.
All right, thank y'all.
Appreciate you. Anybody else?
Caroline, you going to talk?
Okay, so it looks like we've decided as a team that we're going to
Take no action.
and
Hold off and talk to the planner.
and maybe get some advice from our hired planner, our professional planner, and work with some of the individuals that spoke tonight and Eddie, and see if we can't come up with a game plan and an ordinance to move forward with that. The only other thing on the agenda tonight, y'all, was under the new business, was discussion of amending section 12537, that's 6 and 7, that's minor resub servitude with. And bottom line is, it used to be allowed to have a 40-foot servitude whenever you had 4 lots on the servitude. Off of memory here, and when you had 5 lots on a servitude, there's some requirements on whether or not you can have 4 or 5, you know, based on the size of the lots and things of that nature. When you can have 5 lots on a servitude, it required a 60-foot width. Okay? And we made some modifications recently and just said, hey, you got to have a 60-foot width servitude, period, at the end. But a lot of times what's happening is people are only adding 1 lot on a servitude, and we're requiring a 60-foot width, and then we wind up giving a lot of variances for that. And so there was a request in a council meeting recently that we just modify the ordinance so that the waivers ain't necessary. So that's what tonight is, and we'll go ahead and put this on the council agenda to be introduced at the next council meeting. But if you look at, I guess you could say, let me reference this correctly.
Yeah, it's highlighted.
I think it's 12537 minor resubs, but I can't find I know I had it because I read it earlier, but here it is. I got it. I got it. So it's 12537-4. Okay, that's where it talks about any division of property where any lot within the division is less than 1 acre shall have not more than 4 total lots on a private servitude. It says the servitude must be a minimum 60 feet in width. We're going to change that to 40. And then in 6, it says 60, but it talks about you can have 5. That's going to stay the same, 60. Right? Yep. And then 12580, what does that say here? All street and road right-of-ways shall conform to the width designed on the major street plant. Now that's going to stay 60. That's curb and gutter, that's going to stay 60. That's the only change. Okay? Anybody here to discuss this? Anybody want more information?
Just 4 lots or less?
Yeah, on a minor resub. It's kind of like if you got an acre and you want to split it in half,
or cut it in 4.
Well,
or if you
can cut it in 4, but you got to.
Well, here's the problem.
You got to have a servitude.
Here's my problem. And I understand what was told to me by the councilman that put it on here was that they didn't want to give waivers. Well, you know, if you don't want to give waivers, let's don't have any laws. I mean, I'm just thinking 60 foot is good, because if you want to put something back behind there, you need 60 foot for a road. Then you got to have utilities going down. 60 foot is a good number. I don't mind giving a waiver, and I'm advocate for waivers. I give them all the time, and I'm glad to do it. But every one needs to be individually looked at, and then I'll give the waiver. Y'all never accuse me of not giving waivers. I'm good about giving waivers. I don't hate waivers. I like them. But I like leaving the 60 foot. I mean, I'm just, and now look,
It's still
and I may be
60,
the minority in this.
It's still 60 for 5 lots or more.
Then leave it 60 for 4. You know, if it's going to be a lot behind a lot.
What if it's only 2 lots on the servitude?
If they're side by side, then you don't need this. Then
Yeah, but what if it's 2 lots on the servitude, which would mean 2 lots facing the state road and then 2 lots behind that,
Okay.
and just 2 lots on the servitude?
okay, well the blot's been the back. How they going to get back to their blot?
They would have a 40-foot servitude.
They'll only have 40. Well, if they want to build something nice or build it, and they want to have a road, and they want to have utilities going back there. I've seen it where, you know, and then if it's a problem, no, we just give them a waiver. Well, what's the big deal about waivers? That's why we have waivers. It's not a sin. It's not an evil thing. A waiver is a good thing. I know people hate giving waivers. They think
It kind of slows down the process to have to wait on the waiver.
I'll make a motion to give a waiver. I'll second it. Call for the vote. Bam,
Well, you got to put
it's
it on
done.
the council agenda and things like that, you know.
Okay. Look, maybe I'm wrong.
If it was in the ordinance and it didn't need a waiver, you wouldn't have to put it on the council agenda. And I mean, I respect your opinion. I'm just saying.
Any on that?
If you're doing 2 couple lots on a servitude, I mean, I don't really see where you have to have the 60 feet. But
I agree with Mr. John, just because a year ago, every councilman was up here talking about lot sizes. Now you're shrinking down again for this little servitude road. So you're going to make it easier on them, but harder on the developer.
how is it making it harder on the developer? It's really not a
Well,
development.
you can't do a 40-foot lot.
It's not a. It's really not a development. It's just sometimes family members or whatnot like to just subdivide property and build a couple houses in the back.
It's dividing one piece of land into 4. You know, and you're making it that much smaller. You know.
You're talking about the servitude width, making the servitude width smaller.
Yeah, but I just think, I agree with him. Make it case by case, do a waiver if you need it.
And you know, on servitudes, John, you can't put the fence in the lots in the front. If it's a 60-foot servitude going to the back, then you prevent the property owners, you know, that have the front property from utilizing an extra
10 feet
10 feet each.
on each side.
Or if the servitude is just on one piece of the property, it could be 20 feet, you know. I don't know. And what if the lot's only 100 feet wide, you know, or maybe, you know, things like that, you know. I mean,
I'll support waiver. I've never denied a waiver when it's common sense. You know, I'm all in favor of that. And y'all know that. I don't see why you wouldn't go for, but it's so beneficial to have 60 feet in the future.
I think when you have a lot of lots on a servitude, it's a good idea to have as much room as possible to put all those utilities and everything
I've
else
seen
in.
it time and time again. The ditches wind up encroaching in the roads, and
But if it's just a couple, 40 feet to me is plenty, but it's not all about.
so I don't know if you're going to vote for it tonight. I don't know, but I mean, you said it's going to be on the council agenda.
I say put it on the agenda and let's see what the council decides to do. If you're okay with that.
I'm fine with that. No recommendation from the ordinance.
I don't see where it's necessary. Anybody else?
Thank y'all for
Anybody else?
coming tonight.
That's all I got. Y'all want to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? All in favor? Aye. We're out of here.